everybody. This is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 103 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. So today, we are going to talk about longevity in Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to give you guys 5 tips to train Jiu-Jitsu forever. I think it is really important to know that most of us at some point, even if you're young right now, even if you go, I don't really need 5 tips to train Jiu-Jitsu forever, I'll focus on that later. It is smart to think about it now. If you think that you are going to want to do Jiu-Jitsu for the rest of your life, have some thoughts on how you're going to do it. It does not have to be the only focus of your life, right? You don't have to only be focused on that. You can still be focused on competing and still be focused on all the other things you want to accomplish in Jiu-Jitsu now. But it is important to remember that when you are 50, you're going to want to keep doing Jiu-Jitsu. You're not going to want to have to quit. Man, I know so many black belts that didn't prioritize this and actually can't train anymore. Like the one of the most famous ones is like John Danaher, right? He's such a great asset for the Jiu-Jitsu world, but he doesn't get to experience it like we do anymore. I'm sure he still finds ways to enjoy it. I'm sure he still loves it. And he does get to be on the mat. He probably just doesn't get to train as much as most of us, but we want to make sure we prioritize our health. We want to make sure we prioritize how to get there, how to get to the end. We hear about Elio who trained at 90 years old. That's the goal, man. That's the idea. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to accomplish, because Jiu-Jitsu is fun. It's not going to not be fun when you're 80 and you have absolutely nothing to do. You will probably value it even more then. So hopefully today we can just look at 5 tips, 5 little things that you can do to train Jiu-Jitsu forever. You don't have to do all of these to get the benefit of them. These are just things that I would consider the most important, at least the most important for me, because this is something that I have been focused on a lot over the last 5 years, is being able to just train Jiu-Jitsu indefinitely. So that's all I'll talk about the episode. Before we jump into the episode, just wanted to remind you guys that you can join Suck Less Saturday, and this is an exclusive 5 to 15. I say 5 to 15 minutes. They all end up being 20-minute episodes. I just can't help it. I just rant too much, man. Just talk too much about Seinfeld and stuff. But they're great episodes. They are mostly about understanding Jiu-Jitsu as of right now, and just having a deeper understanding of what Jiu-Jitsu is. But they are all mindset episodes, very similar. Now this is a mindset episode, but there is also some other cool perks to being a member of the Patreon page. Suck Less Saturday is one of them. I actually talk a little bit more about another one of them in the episode. And I also like it to kind of be a surprise for you guys when you sign up for the Patreon page. There's a lot of other really good stuff on here. And so you can check that out at I Suck at BJJ, or I think it's I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu. No, I Suck at BJJ. And that is the Patreon page. So without further ado, let's look at 5 tips to train Jiu-Jitsu forever. Tip 1 on training Jiu-Jitsu forever, on Jiu-Jitsu longevity, is to begin with the end in mind. Now I know, man, every time I do 5 tips to do something, 3 tips to do something, 1 tips to do something, tip 1 is always begin with the end in mind. And that is because to accomplish anything, starting out thinking about where you want to end up makes it much easier. Setting some goals, even big goals, makes it much more attainable. And we're going to look at some really easy goals that you can set and would probably be helpful for a lot of people. But I really want to focus more on how to keep setting goals. That's one of the hardest part about goal setting, is that you do it well for 6 weeks and then you stop. And then you do it well for 6 weeks and then you stop and then you never do it again. Right. And so it's really important to set yourself up right to be able to accomplish big goals. So, training Jiu-Jitsu forever is a big goal. This is actually a goal that I have. I think it's really important that a lot of people don't realize uh, how important it will be to them as they age that they continue to be able to train jujitsu. We usually focus on right now. I'm a blue belt. I want to be a purple belt. Uh, that is the goal. That's all that matters. The problem with that is you're going to get your purple belt. Then what? With a goal like training forever, technically it's an unattainable goal. It's really not a goal. It's more of a mindset. It's something that um, I guess you can attain it by just dying while you're still training, but it's just a tough goal to attain. So we set it and then we set small goals. Okay. So my small goals should match up with my big goal of training forever. So if my goal is to train forever and I do certain things that are really taxing on my body in my jujitsu. So, for example, I invert a lot and I'm always up on my neck and my shoulders. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I should be doing. Man, even the small guys that I know that have done that forever, most of them, they have back problems, right? And I'm not saying you can't berimbolo and figure out how to use your hip flexibility to keep you off your neck. You can definitely do that. But most people just don't. Most people think, hey, if a move works, it works and it should go into my game. There are some moves, there are some things that are just too hard on your body. I remember I didn't start really thinking about longevity until I probably right at the end of purple belt or right at the beginning of brown belt. I just remember I was doing so many different moves that ended me in bad positions. Like just physically bad positions, being rolled up on my neck, just being crunched weird, being twisted weird. And I decided I didn't want to do those things anymore, even if it meant that my jujitsu at the time would not be as strong. I decided I wanted to have a game that is easy on my body, that I don't have to pay for, basically. And so I set a small goal of trying to make an easier game on myself. And it took a long time, honestly. I had so many habits, but eventually I started to develop a game that also was successful, that was also just as good, at this point, much better. But it set me up to not be so beat up. It set me up to not have long layoffs because I'm injured, because I was willing to sacrifice my body to get a sweep in the gym. So setting those goals, those small goals, is going to be important. Also, goals are easier with momentum. So you want to set things that are accomplishable. We want to, like if you're just starting, set something that can be accomplished in a week or two and focus on it and accomplish it. And then as soon as you're done, have your next goal set up, have your next idea set up. It's so easy to look at jujitsu as a whole. But the people that get better are the people that look at it for its individual components. When we talk about skill development, that is somebody who is focused on the individual components, right? We're going to talk about exercise and stuff towards the end of the episode. So I'm not going to get in on that, but your goals in your weightlifting, they should be matched up to your goals of training jujitsu forever. If my goal is to train jujitsu forever and I'm doing stuff that might hurt me in the gym, in the weight room, well, most likely I'm not going to do jujitsu forever. Even if everything's great in my jujitsu when I'm on the mat, but I'm doing something else ignorant that might hurt me, then I'm not going to be able to do jujitsu forever, most likely. And the last thing is set goals that you actually want to accomplish. And I think that is the most important thing. I think so many of us, we think about the grind. We think about putting ourselves in bad situations and making ourselves work out of those, or making really tough goals to finish. And that's great. And I think that when you're looking at the skill development of toughness, I think that you need to do those things. You need to set very hard goals to attain. You need to set goals that make you deny yourself certain luxuries or things that you love. But if your goal is longevity, then you shouldn't always be training to be tough. You should also be training to enjoy. We talk about this on the podcast. You will not do things that you don't enjoy. None of us do. And maybe you can for a certain period of time, but there are very few humans that can do things that they don't like to do and they don't get paid for indefinitely, right? I know I am not one of the humans that can do that. So we just set goals that we're desiring to accomplish when we are beginning with the end in mind. This is still tip one. But I think a fun example of this, I was watching Seinfeld the other day. I've watched it like a million times through, but this is just the episode that was on my mind. There's an episode where Kramer decides that he is going to get rid of all of his furniture and he is just going to build levels in his house. And so basically, I think he was just going to build a bunch of square boxes, and that was going to be all of his furniture. And Jerry bets him that he won't do it. And so they make the bet. And then, of course, by the end of the episode, Kramer has not done it. You know, he has to like the end of the month to do it. And he hasn't done it. And he goes, well, I didn't lose the bet because I decided I didn't want to do it. And Jerry said, yes, that was the bet, that you wouldn't do it. And he said, yeah, but I could do it. I just didn't want to do it. And that is kind of where the episode ends. That is how so many of us set goals. We want, like, we have no desire to actually attain the goal or get the whatever the luxury of the goal is. We just know, well, we're supposed to be setting goals. I'll just set a goal. If you have this goal to make $1 million, but you don't have any intention on spending it, you don't really have anything you're going to use that money for, is it really that great of a goal? Now, if you have a goal to make $1 million and only work a short period of time, so then you can take that money and spend it and enjoy it with your family, well, that's a goal that is more attainable. Not because it's easier, it's actually much harder, but it has desire behind it. So we set our goals in jiu-jitsu to have desire behind them, to be the things that we want to do, the parts of jiu-jitsu that we find beautiful, that we find interesting. Maybe you love defense in jiu-jitsu. You think that there's something really interesting about being completely relaxed in bottom side control, using frames and finding the spaces that you need to be able to escape. And you feel like you can do it on really good guys too. And it's just fun for you. And it doesn't beat up your body. Focus on that. Not everybody has to be focused on IBJJF points and trying to get to the submission. We all have things that we enjoy. In jiu-jitsu, there are certain times that I will go into training and I will just be putting myself in bad positions, not because, oh, this is the best way to train, but because it's fun for me. It's fun for me to go, man, this person was deep there and they still couldn't finish because I knew how to move my body. I knew how to escape. So set goals that you desire to accomplish, set small goals so you can continue to accomplish, but most importantly, set your big goal, whatever that may be, whether it is on longevity, but you could not be focused on longevity. You could be focused on being a black belt world champion. That goal setting, beginning with the end in mind, is going to be your first step always. Second step, second tip for training jiu-jitsu forever is learn to win. So you want to define what winning is. Not everybody is there to submit everybody. Let's say you are just doing jiu-jitsu for self-defense If your only goal is self-defense for jiu-jitsu, going out and trying to have a great spider guard, it's probably a silly goal. It doesn't really fit, right? Even if I'm getting triangles from my spider guard, my big goal was to learn self-defense, and I only know how to play spider guard. Well, guess what? When I get in a fight, if I get in a fight in a bad situation, I have no takedowns and I'm pulling open guard and trying to control the sleeves to play spider guard, is probably not my best bet, right? It just doesn't make sense for self-defense. So I have to define what winning is, and I define that off of my goals. So, for example, when I was a purple belt, I started training a lot with Ezra Lennon. He was like the best guy in the area at the time, and I was able to get training with him. And I remember my goal to win against Ezra, in quotes. Keep in mind, he's like coming off of doing ADCC at the time, and I'm still a pretty newer purple belt. He would just beat me so easily every single round. And I remember I would set the goal every time. Man, if I could just get him to work hard, like if there was a day that he submitted me like 4 or 5 times in a round, that was my first goal. I know I lost 4 or 5 times in that round, but my goal was to get him to not be able to go so easy, to go, okay, I need to beat this kid up. That was all my goal was, just to get him to go hard. That was what winning was to me. I set, just like we talked about a second ago, I set a small goal and I tried to work to accomplish it. If my goal was like, okay, I'm going to submit him one day, it probably wouldn't have happened. If that was my only goal, I would have gotten discouraged before that because I wasn't even getting him to try. How was I going to submit him? So that is what we need to do first. To learn to win, we have to define winning. So we talked about this a second ago. We also talked about focusing on skill development. So I really like to make that what winning is that I'm getting better at a certain skill. So if I'm going with one of my students that has great leg locks, maybe my goal in the round is not to finish them a bunch. Maybe my goal in the round is to see how much time I can spend in leg entanglements from the defensive perspective and not get submitted, or how many times I can escape. And what I do, and this is the last tip on learning to win, is I turn everything into a game. You want everything to be a game. That is, if we look at it now, even when you're on Facebook, now every part of Facebook is a game. We're all trying to get likes, of course. But if I'm a member of a Facebook group, they make it, if I comment more, I get to be the top commenter. Oh my gosh, Josh is the top commenter on BJJ Fanatics Facebook group. That's so impressive. It's really silly, but they turned it into a game. And the people that get to that top commenter level, they are happy. They're excited. They got a badge. Got turned into a game. It made it fun. It made it easier to accomplish a goal. It made it easier to, we see it on everything. Everything is a game now. Even when you're listening to podcasts, it can be a game. You can say, man, I really love the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. I want to listen to every episode. And so you focus on that as a game. When we make things games, they're so much more fun. And when they're fun, there's such a better chance that we are going to accomplish them. So our 3 thoughts again on learning to win. First is we define what winning is to us. We can look at winning. I didn't say this, but sometimes like I'll tell my older guys, hey, look at winning as survival. If you can survive, you won. If that means you got submitted 6 times and then you survived the last 30 seconds of the round, you won. Make sure that we are giving ourselves a little bit of participation trophies. I never see the guys that love to make themselves suffer and love to be hard on themselves. I wouldn't say never. Very, very, very seldom do I ever see them make it past purple belt. Almost never do I ever see them make it past purple belt without first changing that mindset, saying, hey, maybe it's okay to enjoy jujitsu. Maybe it's okay to be okay with getting submitted. I remember when I interviewed Huron Gracie, it was a really great statement on losing in jujitsu. He said, if you get a submission, be excited that jujitsu works. And he said, and if you get submitted, be excited that jujitsu works. Obviously, it worked on me and not for me this time, but I should still be excited that it worked. Now we'll look at tip 3. I think that this is a super cool tip. I don't know if I really have talked about this much on the show, but I've been thinking about this a lot in just looking back on what my training has been over the years. But use the buddy system. Tip 3, use the buddy system. I always think of the movie Heavyweights, where the girl asked the guy, hey, aren't you supposed to be watching the kids? And he said, no, they're using the body system. And he was saying buddy system, but when he would yell buddy, all the kids that were in the lake had to raise their hand because they were holding hands with their friend. And that is what we have to do in jiu-jitsu. We need buddies in jiu-jitsu. That's most of what makes jiu-jitsu fun, is the friendships. I really think that is the camaraderie. That is like when people that have wrestled their whole life, when people that have been in the military, that is one thing you always hear them comment on initially, is the camaraderie. I think when we don't realize how much we're missing camaraderie in our life, we don't notice it as quickly. But when we realize, like when we've had camaraderie before, we've played a team sport, we've done something like that, and then we get to get it again in a jiu-jitsu gym, have camaraderie again, have a group of peers that you can beat up on, but you're friends with, and you can talk trash to, but you're friends with. And you guys are all trying to progress each other and to get better. That is the beauty of jiu-jitsu. That's one of the most fun parts. So we need to have people that we constantly train with. That doesn't mean that we have to match up our schedules and only train together and only drill together. We don't have to do that. If you want to do that, of course you can. But I look, and I've had probably like 3 people in all of my jiu-jitsu that I would consider like, oh yeah, these guys were my jiu-jitsu buddies. And coming up, like, this is who I'm partnered with. This is who I'm asking questions to. This is who we're sharing opinions on our thoughts on jiu-jitsu with. And I've had like 3, maybe 4 of those throughout all of jiu-jitsu. And we'll talk about like what this person should look like, how to know if somebody should be your jiu-jitsu buddy. And we'll also talk about what happens if you lose your buddy, because that happens a lot in jiu-jitsu. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, how do you find somebody? How do you find somebody that can be a jiu-jitsu buddy? One thing I love is if you are a white belt, I would try your best to befriend a blue belt, somebody who knows just a little bit more than you. To you, it'll feel like somebody who knows an extreme amount more than you, but somebody who you can look at and work up to be their peer, to be somebody who maybe can influence their jiu-jitsu, to be somebody that maybe you can help. Okay. So that is one way that you can look at it, is I can look to an upper belt and say, hey, maybe this person will be my jiu-jitsu buddy. I've got to think about a better name than jiu-jitsu buddy, because jiu-jitsu buddy is pretty silly. Or you can do the opposite. You can say, okay, I am a blue belt. I want to, when I interviewed Claudia Duval, I think her advice to everybody was adopt a white belt. I thought that's really fun advice. It's something that we do at the gym, at our gym, without talking about very often. You'll notice as you look around, There's always guys that are different belts that partner together, or just different skill levels that partner together constantly, because it's really fun if you're an upper belt to try to go, okay, it took me 5 years to get this good. I wonder if I could get this person with a little more individual attention, if I can get this white belt as good as I am right now in 2 years or in 3 years, right? Then theoretically, everybody is going to be getting better, because if I have a new peer, a new training partner that's going to push me, well, I'm going to get better from that too. Also, it's going to teach me a little bit about teaching, and a little bit, I'll get a deeper understanding on how to help somebody get good. But one of the most important things when I'm looking for a buddy is somebody that I enjoy talking to. Doesn't mean we have to have the same political beliefs. Doesn't mean that we have to have the same religious beliefs. Doesn't mean any of that. All it means is that I have to enjoy hearing about their perspective on things. Because if I don't, well, then they're not going to be a very good buddy. That's not going to be a strong relationship. And I want somebody who can ask questions, who can say, or make statements. I want to say I referenced this on a Suck Less Saturday episode. So if you guys are not Patreon supporters, you did not hear it. But I was just talking about a private that I was doing. And it was a blue belt and a white belt. And the blue belt was getting the move wrong. And the white belt didn't say, you're doing it wrong, do this instead. I think that that's usually not as good advice. What he did say was, I don't feel it here. I don't feel the pressure in the place that I was supposed to. And it was such an easy little thing to miss. It was such an easy little statement. But if you have a relationship like that with somebody for your jiu-jitsu, you will get better so much faster, because you have somebody who says, hey, I don't know, that doesn't feel super tight to me. He took interest that his training partner wasn't getting the move right, and didn't try to stroke his own ego by saying, oh, I know what the answer is and you don't. He just said, I feel this. I don't feel this. Having somebody that you can experiment with new moves on and say, hey, does this work? Does this not work? That is so important. Or somebody who can just keep your energy level. You'll find that usually if you're older, you will want your buddies that you train with to be older. If you are young and if you're 20 and you want to go hard and you want to fight to the death, you will find that you will do better with buddies that are 20 years old and are crazy and want to fight to the death. You want to find somebody that kind of has common goals, common opinions, and that you enjoy talking to, but understand this person will probably change over time. So I think that if trained through, training partners that I've had that have been training since, let's say I was a white belt, I only have two that never had to take any time off, or never moved or anything like that. And would be my dad. Makes sense that he's been my training partner for a very long time. And Justin Huff, who's been on the podcast. Those two, we were all white belts at the same time. And we've all trained together since. Of that, I bet you there have been thousands of people that I've trained with over the last 14 years. But of those thousands, only two of them have stayed my training partners, my jiu-jitsu buddies, at least for the whole time. I've had people that were early on and then kind of took a break and then came back, which is also awesome. But understand that your jiu-jitsu buddies may not be there forever. Don't let that be discouraging to you. It's okay. Jiu-jitsu is not for everybody all the time. It's okay if somebody has a baby and they need to take 2 or 3 or 4 years off until their kid starts to get older, or they get a new job or something. Those things happen. The reason I want to make sure you understand that the person may not be there forever is you don't want that to be what causes you to not train jiu-jitsu anymore, that you lost your jiu-jitsu buddy. Something else you can also do, and this seems to work for a lot of people, is invite somebody to class. Invite somebody you're already friends with, beat them down about coming to Train Jiu-Jitsu. And I know that you're like, oh, well, I mean, I asked them and they never come. Work in sales. If you worked in sales, if you did anything that had to do with sales, you would understand that it's okay to ask people more than once. And most of the time, most people, it takes a lot of asks to get them there. You don't call them a pansy for not coming to jiu-jitsu. You just always make it an option. You just always kind of try to get people to come with you. Hey, I'm going to jiu-jitsu. I've really been feeling better. I've been healthier from it. It's really great for my mental health. I'm having so much fun. I'm learning so much new stuff. You should come try it. And you try to get them to come in. And that's another easy way to have a jiu-jitsu buddy, is to get a buddy to come do jiu-jitsu with you. But those things are going to be really important, is just having a buddy to talk to. Next tip that we have for training jiu-jitsu forever is prioritize staying on the mats. And I know that we kind of touched on this throughout the whole podcast when we talked about having our goals. But this, I think, needed to be a point in itself, because we can break it down into 3 different segments. So we are going to talk about your diet first. When it comes to prioritizing staying on the mats, just 2 really simple rules of thumb are going to be: first, try to eat as little inflammation causing food as you can. That will make it so much easier to train more. It will make it so much easier to recover. If you look at the crazy diet that they talk about that Tom Brady does, and one of his big credits, one of the big things that he credits for his longevity in his training is his diet, or in football is his diet. I was saying his training like he does jiu-jitsu. He doesn't. At least that I know of. He seems like a cool guy. He would probably train jiu-jitsu. But anyway, the big thing you'll notice on that diet is it is all just anti-inflammation foods. That is going to be the downfall of us all. And keep in mind, the best foods are the ones that cause inflammation. The most delicious are the ones that cause inflammation. If you don't know what inflammation causing foods are, generally, you can just think of a donut. So a donut's going to have the 3 main things that we eat that cause inflammation. One is going to be processed sugar. Delicious. Love processed sugar. And that's going to be glazed on our donut. 2 is going to be processed, or like heavily processed flour. So for us, it's usually white flour. And then the 3rd thing is going to be hydrogenized oil. That is an oil that is cooked at a very high temperature in hydrogen. And what that does is it lets the oil heat up really hot, and it changes the smoke temperature of the oil. And it allows us to deep fry things, right? And that's how we eat our donuts, is we like to deep fry them because it's delicious. So you can usually look at inflammation causing food. The second thing about diet is make sure you are eating enough. Man, it's so common to just always want to cut weight in jiu-jitsu. I don't like it. I don't want to cut weight. I think that there's nothing wrong with it if you're doing it for the skill development of your health. But to think that the 5 pounds that you're willing to kill yourself over are going to matter that much in the gym, in a tournament, most likely not. Most likely, if you're weak at one weight class, you might be weak at another. Now, there are times that it does make sense. I have a student that is down a lot of body fat and is starting to see more success in the gym and more success in tournaments. You want to be optimized. You want to be as lean as you can stay consistently, but also make sure you are eating enough. What we do in jiu-jitsu is really hard on your body. There is so much volume to our training, and don't follow steroid users if you are not one. So Uh, like I never really comment on how I feel about using versus not using. I think it is very hard in jiu-jitsu to be uh to be friends with anybody if you're a very big anti-steroid person. Uh, that is why I never really come out and like start bashing people for using. I don't care if people use or not. For me, won't. It's something not like I don't think I will. It's just a decision I made a long time ago that I'm not going to use any performance enhancing drugs. Uh, I just think longevity wise, since that is my goal of jujitsu, I don't think it helps with longevity. I think it's actually, I think it hurts your chances of training for a long period of time. I think it allows you to beat up your body more than you probably should be able to. It allows you to get away with recovering without taking care of yourself. And that doesn't work out usually. But just make sure if you are following a strength, a diet routine, something like that, make sure it's somebody who is on your level. Make sure that you're not going in as a 50-year-old grappler who's all natty and is trying to just be healthy, and you're buying Nicky Rod's weightlifting routine. That doesn't make sense, right? You guys aren't on the same level. The dude can lift like that and then be recovered for training that night. You lift like that, you need 6 days before you can recover for training. So understand that we are trying to prioritize staying on the mat. Your diet is a very important way to prioritize that. And just like we touched on it, your exercise is too. If your exercise keeps you off the mat, and it's probably not prioritized staying on the mat. You're not prioritizing staying on the mats. So if I feel like I need to lift 5 days a week and it only allows me to do jiu-jitsu 1 day a week, that doesn't make much sense now, does it? My lifting should be about keeping me on the mat. For me, I do a lot of rehab with what I consider my exercise. I consider exercise for me yoga and weightlifting. I lift weights once a week because anytime I try to lift at the intensity that I like to lift more than once a week, I have to sacrifice days of training. If I don't, I tend to get injured. And this is an experiment that I've done on myself a bunch of times. It's not like that for everybody. Some people can lift more. I'm just not one of those people. And so, I've experimented and I've found that. The other thing is with yoga, just being more flexible is really important for jiu-jitsu because a lot of times we are forced to be flexible. And there are other things you can do. You can learn to kind of correct some of the problems that a lot of people have. Normally, I think that can be really helpful for your jiu-jitsu. Like a lot of people have pelvic tilts. A lot of people have, for me, I have plantar fasciitis. These are common things that people have, and correcting them can definitely extend your jiu-jitsu life. And so, with your exercise, prioritize what will keep me on the mats. And then the last part about prioritizing staying on the mats is your rest. Now, this one, for some people, is not very hard. Some of us rest too much. But for others, this is really hard because for some of us, there isn't enough time in the week. We've got to get more done. We've got to be doing more. We've got to be pushing harder. We've got to go get after it. We're crazy. I get it. I'm the same way. But it is much better to train less, be recovered, and have good training sessions than to train more. And even I listened to what is it? I don't remember what the name of the instructional is, but it's Gordon Ryan. It's an instructional. It's like from his living room. And it's just about, I think it's like the mindset of the king or something like that. But it's just about his training and how he trains and how he looks at mindset and things like that. Well, at one point, he talks about how he used to train 3 days a week or 3 times a day. He used to just do 3 open mats. And as he got older, and it's not like he's old, it's not like he's 40 and he's just physically can't do it anymore. And that's why he's sacrificing it. He said that he realized that training once a day was better training for him. He was showing up to that training more refreshed and able to train. That's how you have to look at your training. You have to look at your training as there is a goal, there is an intention. I'm trying to get better at ... And I can actually accomplish that goal. One of the only ways to accomplish those goals is to be rested. Some little tips on getting good rest is going to bed on time, having a time that you go to bed each night. Last night, I actually abused my go to bed on time. It was my off night, or my off day. So that means I go to bed at like 7 p.m. instead of like 10. But sometimes you need those days too, where you get extra sleep. But have a point that you go to bed. And that will help with training. That will help with injury so much. This is funny. I actually, like, in the last 3 years, probably 3.5 years now, I've gotten sick like 2 times. And that's very few times to get sick. Before that, I was literally getting sick once a month. And it would just be like I would get a cold. It was no fun to deal with. But maybe I would say once a month might be a slight exaggeration. Once every 6 weeks was not a slight exaggeration. And it was because I was doing personal training full time. I was running a gym full time. And I was trying to be a full-time competitor. I was teaching every class at the gym. So as the gym started to grow, as it started to make a little more money, I was able to end a day of personal training, and then end another day of personal training, and end another day of personal training. And in that time, that has been the greatest increase of my jiu-jitsu, is when I stopped having to get up at 4:30 every day. And I don't think getting up at 4:30 every day is impossible to get good rest. You could go to bed early enough, but I was also running a gym that I didn't get home till 7:30 or 8, and I hadn't eaten dinner yet. And so trying to balance that was really hard. I had to sacrifice rest. I had to sacrifice sleep, and I paid for it. The amount of injuries that I had back then versus now, it doesn't even compare. The amount of times I would get sick. I was off the mats all the time because I was sick. And now I don't get sick much anymore. And it has to do with getting proper rest. That doesn't mean, I understand that you work 60 hours a week and it's not viable. You need that money to provide for your family. All you should try to do is take little steps towards getting better rest. If you only sleep 4 hours a night, 5 hours a night would probably be helpful. So just make small goals to see if you can accomplish those big goals. And then the last tip on training jiu-jitsu forever is never think you are a finished product. This is the mindset that kills people after blue belt. Before blue belt, I think really the reason most people quit is because they attain what they came into jiu-jitsu looking for, or they just didn't have enough time. That's common. People after blue belt, once you get your purple belt, quitting is less common. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see, and I see it in every gym, I see it purple, brown, and black belt. People think that they are a finished product. And what that means is they stop focusing on learning jiu-jitsu, as if there is a point at black belt that, well, I just can't learn as much as these white belts do. I would argue that I learn more at black belt than I ever have at any belt. I've been a black belt for, 3 years. I've been a black belt for 3 years. And I have 100% learned more in the last 3 years than I did 3 years at brown belt. I have no doubt about that. And it's because I decided to not be a finished product. I don't even play the same guard that I used to play, that I played from blue belt to brown belt. because I decided I wasn't a finished product. I decided there were still better ways of doing jujitsu. And this is something that I talk a lot to the Patreon supporters about, but understanding jujitsu, focusing on understanding is the primary goal of jujitsu, or should be in every sense. If I'm trying to be a better competitor, having a deeper understanding of jujitsu and the different layers of it, maybe that means understanding how to pace better. Maybe that means understanding how to compete better. Maybe that means just understanding how to get certain takedowns and set them up better. Having a deeper understanding of jiu-jitsu is how I would accomplish being a better competitor. For longevity of jiu-jitsu, having a deeper understanding of jiu-jitsu is how I would accomplish that, because the better I am at being technical, the more I can build a game that protects my body and the longer that I can train. Having a deeper understanding of jiu-jitsu will be helpful for self-defense. Why? Because if I understand the points of control on somebody and I understand how to control somebody and they attack me, I don't have to have trained for that exact specific situation where we're at Taco Bell and he cut me in line and I have to fight him to the death. I don't have to do that anymore because I have a deep understanding of what is happening in jiu-jitsu, so I can make adjustments on the fly. And if you guys are interested in understanding jiu-jitsu deeper, definitely sign up for the Patreon page. I've pretty much every episode that we've done of Suck Less Saturday, I think we've done 7 now, they are all on understanding jiu-jitsu deeper. And then I also have an ebook coming out that all the Patreon supporters will get a free copy of, and a what do you call it? Like a sneak peek of. They'll get to see it before anyone else does and get to review it before anyone else gets to see it, which is really cool. So you should sign up for the Patreon page. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about never being a finished product. Also, being thankful for training partners who can beat you. And we talked about this a little bit in Learning to Win. We talked about learning to lose. But if you can be thankful for a training partner that can beat you, a lot of times, this is what I wanted to finish with when we're thinking about 5 tips to train Jiu-Jitsu forever. Be thankful for training partners who can beat you. It is so common that we say, yeah, this guy injured me. This person injured me. Most of the time, we injure ourselves in jiu-jitsu. Most of the time, our injuries are on us. Yes, people don't hear you tap sometimes, and that's probably an injury on them because they're stupid. Or sometimes people fall on you or something like that, and that's an injury on somebody else. But generally, we are training at 100% intensity, and we're going with somebody who maybe is close to us or isn't as good of us or is as better than us. But we're training at this intensity because getting a submission is all that matters in our life. And it is the one way that we will feel accomplished. And then we wrench something too hard. We wait too long to tap. We fight something too hard. And then, or we're too proud to tap. You know, like, dude, your neck always hurts because you sit in things that you say, oh, well, it's more of a crank, not a choke, so I'm not going to tap to it. That's stupid. If it's hurting your neck, just tap to it. Get out of it and then try again and see if you can defend it and keep it from hurting your neck. Also, we've got to be thankful that we have training partners that beat us. The reason that I say it like that is because if you are just thankful that somebody is good enough to beat you, a lot of times what will happen is you will stop killing yourself going with them. You will start to go, man, that was interesting what they did to me. And you'll learn from it, whether that means you learn how to stop it or you learn what they are trying to do. And the less time we spend getting our head and our neck wrenched on, the more time we're going to be able to spend on the mats. So when it comes to your training partners, Don't think of them as the people that you are competing with and competing against. It's not like that. Your training partners should be people that either you are trying to bring up to your level or you are trying to ask questions to get to theirs, or you're trying to train with to get to theirs. And so that's pretty much all that I have for you guys today about never thinking that, about never thinking you are a finished product, but just wanted to go over all 5 points really quick, just so we can make sure we're on the same page. So tip one, if we're trying to train jiu-jitsu forever, is to begin with the end in mind. Remember, we're setting small goals. We're setting goals that we desire to accomplish. Tip two, we have to learn to win. So we have to define what winning means to us, whether that means not getting submitted, whether that means getting a finish or getting to a different position that we've been looking at. We can make winning anything. We turn everything into a game. We make it fun. I want to get better at leg lock defense. We start from 50-50 every round. It's way less pressure because if I get submitted from 50-50, like, okay, yeah, the guy submitted me, but it's not like it was a whole round. We're just trying to focus on skill development, which is our last point. We made it a game. We focused on our skill development. Then the third thing, we use the buddy system. Have people that we enjoy talking to. Those are our training partners, people that we enjoy asking and bouncing questions off of. And we have to also always understand that those people may not be there forever. Fourth, we have to prioritize staying on the mat. So our diet, our exercise, and our rest should reflect someone who prioritizes staying on the mat, whose goal is to stay on the mat forever. And then 5, never think you are a finished product. Jiu-jitsu is only a journey. The end is either when you quit or when you die. So we have to make sure that we never think of ourselves as a finished product, never take ourselves too seriously. I was trying to avoid this rant, but it's just slipping out. Jiu-jitsu is full of people who take themselves too seriously. Jiu-jitsu is almost all people that take themselves too seriously. I know that we talk about checking our ego at the door. We talk about how respectful we're supposed to be. But then we have all these gyms in our area or not in our area that we hate, and they're evil, and they are all jerks. They're all arrogant. They're all this or they're all that. We love to do that in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu gossip is so common. We love to have enemies in jiu-jitsu. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Stop making it about our gym versus their gym. That is such, I think that this comes from the top down generally. It generally comes from the highest people at your gym. They, because they hate someone else, they think that somebody else is the cause for their unhappiness. Some other gym, some other black belt, some other purple belt, right? They really think that. This comes because they're arrogant. They think of themselves as a finished product. They think of themselves as perfect. We are all guilty of this at some points. I do it too. I just really try to recognize when I do it. And I think that in jiu-jitsu, we've just gotten so okay with bashing everybody and hating everybody. And I don't listen to this guy's podcast because he's this, because he is a liberal, or because he supports Trump, or because he wears a mask, or because he doesn't. We love to do that. We love to make everything about us as the hero and then the enemy who's only trying to attack our happiness. We got to stop doing that. We've got to stop taking ourselves so seriously. We've got to stop thinking of ourselves as the finished product and start saying, okay, we're screwed up too. We're arrogant too. We're loudmouths sometimes too. That's okay. It's okay that they are. They're learning, they're getting better. Stop focusing on them versus you. Just focus on you. Just focus on you, who is not a finished product, who is not perfect, who is not yet the best at jiu-jitsu that they ever will be. And just focus on getting better. That will make jiu-jitsu so much more fun for you. I tried to avoid the rants. I'm sorry. I actually didn't put it in my notes, that thinking that it would keep me from ranting, but it happens. What can I say? I'm an angry guy. I'm a hothead. I was thinking about doing an episode soon of just me bashing things. Like an episode of what grinds my gears, like the top 10 things that make me angry in jiu-jitsu. If you guys are interested in an episode where I am ranting and I'm angry, and maybe like it feel like have kind of a Rush Limbaugh feel to it, where I just bash everybody, I'm in. You guys just got to tell me. If you guys are interested in that episode, let me know. But that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And that is the episode. Last week, after the episode with Thomas from Roll Radio, I had a little conversation, a little thought that I shared with you guys just about mental health in jiu-jitsu. I think after we talked about the buddy system, it might be another good time to bring up the same thing. And just reaching out to an old buddy. So it's just kind of a challenge for you guys. It's something that you can do this week that's really easy, but might have a big effect on somebody else. And think back to some of your favorite training partners. Okay, so maybe you're brand new and maybe you could do this a little differently, but if not, we're going to assume that you've been training for a little bit and you've had certain training partners, like all of us have, that trained and they were an awesome training partner and somebody you loved seeing, and you don't see them anymore. They quit jiu-jitsu, they quit training at the gym or whatever, and you don't get to see them anymore. Reach out to one of those people this week. Just go out. Whether you say, hey, I would love if you came back to the gym or not, just reach out. Just make some contact. I think that you would be surprised how many people there are that are only an ask away from coming back to the gym or coming to the gym in general. I actually talk about asking and inviting somebody to the gym, inviting somebody to train in this episode a little bit. I did. But for us, maybe it's not even the goal of bringing them back on the mat. Maybe it was just, hey, this is a friend that we made through jiu-jitsu. They don't do jiu-jitsu anymore, but they can still be our friend. You go out and reach out to them. That is my challenge for you guys. Like I talked about last week, this is a time that a lot of people's mental health really starts to struggle, or a lot of people that have mental health issues start to struggle. And so it's just, it's important to reach out to those people, because whether you struggle with it or not, if you did, you would want somebody to reach out to you. And so that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope that 40 years from now, I see you at a jiu-jitsu tournament and you tell me that the 5 tips to train jiu-jitsu forever helped you train jiu-jitsu forever. And you and I get to talk and we are both fat and happy, still doing jiu-jitsu. Hopefully I'm not bald. Maybe you are. I don't know. I don't know what the scenario is, but hopefully that happens. And I hope that today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. What's up, guys? Josh here again. I just wanted to give you a little more information on some of the other content that I produce that isn't just the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. If you are wanting more information on how to become more efficient and effective in your jiu-jitsu training, the number one thing that I always recommend to people is my Patreon page, the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show Patreon page, because we release a 5 to 15 minute exclusive episode every single Saturday. This is called Suck Less Saturday, and it is completely focused on being for your jiu-jitsu training, for your jiu-jitsu mindset, and for your jiu-jitsu progression. And so what we'll do is a quick but deep dive on a different thought, idea, or training method every single Saturday. And you can only get this on our Patreon page. I also have a few spots open, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast, for my Suck Less coaching. What that is a monthly cost to get a monthly meeting with me where we meet over Zoom and set some goals based on what you are trying to accomplish in jiu-jitsu and set some different training methods to help you get there. There's nothing like this online right now. There is no jiu-jitsu coaching that teaches you how you should be training, and it is exclusively on the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Patreon page. Also, if you guys want to just be in more contact or you want to learn a little more about my ideas in jiu-jitsu, I highly recommend that you sign up for Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu. It is a free ebook. It is at simplifyingjujitsu.com. And what we do is we break down the top 5 positions, the essential 5 positions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. These are the 5 positions where most Jiu-Jitsu, 90+% of Jiu-Jitsu takes place in. And we break down how to train them, how long you should be training them, and what order you can train these things to progress faster and easier with your jiu-jitsu. And lastly, if you guys would just give this show a subscribe and a share, it would be very greatly appreciated. Also, you can review us on certain podcast platforms. If you guys want to keep up with me personally, you can follow me at my Instagram at @thejoshmckinney. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for listening. I hope that you guys listen to the next one.